your face. Boom in your face. Boom in your face. Boom in your face. Hello and welcome to Boom in Your Face, a platform for indie artists and musicians to come and share their new music or projects, as well as discuss topics about the music industry and the community at large. Boom in Your Face has two meanings. One is that boom in your face from the music that you're listening to, but the other boom in your face is when someone assumes the situation is one way and boom in your face is totally wrong and something totally different. So on occasion, we discuss those boom in your face moments, so watch out that someone might be you. Listeners, if you'd like to share your boom in your face music or projects, or share your boom in your face moments, or just want to join us in the conversation, reach out and email me at boominyourface616@gmail.com or visit the website and sign up for the newsletter, like, subscribe, and share the episodes. I'm your host, Mary Kearney. Thank you everyone for joining in this special edition of Boom in Your Face podcast. We're going to discuss just a little bit about the Roe versus Wade decision. By no means are we trying to impose our will or viewpoint on others. It's simply having a discussion about options and considerations before moving forward. But at the end of the day, we all know that the power is in the hands of us as citizens to get out and vote and change anything that we don't agree upon or become active and be the voice in the crowd. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually a big fan of your son. Working working for NASA, that's a dream job for us Semvez guys. And then he goes off to EA.
I know. At such a young age.
I was a specialist in the Army going through my first deployment.
Yes, different life journey.
It took me 11 years to get into the career path I decided to go into. So,
well, listen, everybody has their own way of getting to their destination. Some have a quick route, some have a longer route.
Right.
So that's why you can't judge somebody else's journey because you don't know what has been the obstacle that they had to overcome or the circumstance they had to deal with.
And that's probably one of the biggest problems that we're having with today's society is got a lot of people judging and nobody, but when it comes to, hey, walk in my shoes, nobody seems to want to walk in those shoes.
That's right.
I'm not going to walk in those shoes, but I'll sure as heck judge you for it.
and the other side of it is like, does it matter?
I don't find that to be right.
But, it's not until you really get a real good scale of self that you understand that it doesn't matter what others think. It matters what you think, who you serve thinks, and who is around you that you love and care about think.
One of the most recent things that happened, Roe versus Wade. I mean, being overturned. Everybody's in such an uproar about it.
I know, and I'm like, okay, things happen, and just like that got changed, and it changed back.
The biggest thing that throws me off is that a lot of these people, maybe not, obviously not, maybe not everybody on that side, but a lot of people in this, a lot of people that I know, that are making posts, protesting against the Roe versus Wade removal. Those are the same people who kept saying the federal government has too much power over the states. And it's like, well, reversing Roe versus Wade takes the power away from the federal government and gives it to the state governments. So why are you guys so upset? Because you guys were just upset about the fact that the federal government has too much power. Right. So the federal government takes away, gives that power back to the states, and now you guys are mad again?
Exactly. Good evening, James.
That's a whole nother subject.
Good evening.
Well, that's
Hey,
another
Daniel.
issue that's hot on the topic list because, I mean, it's all about which way the individual handles it because, I mean, I can see both sides of the argument. I
Well, I
can.
mean, you can record me on this. I'm a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that um, abortion is the right step. But is it my place to judge what other people do? God gave free will,
Amen. And that's the point.
and I know that when I'll know if I'm right or not when I pass on and I'm in front of God and He judges me before I walk into the pearly gates.
That's
But
right.
it's not my place to judge what other people do. That's not my place. That's not my
Or your
job in
job.
this world.
Exactly. That's not your job. That's right.
I agree with that completely. We talk about that
Well,
all the time, right?
yes,
About how
but
it's
I
not.
mean, it's just the actual fact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can have your opinion, you can have your viewpoint, but you can judge your life and make the decision for you, and I'll make the decision for me.
Exactly.
I can't make your decision in your life.
Yeah, I mean, God gave everybody free
For a
will.
reason. For a reason. So that way
Exactly.
you can make your
God
decision.
gave everyone free will,
and
and
he'll
the
judge
main
you.
reason why God gave everyone free will was because He wanted people who came to heaven
Correct.
to be deserving of heaven. They use their free will to earn their way into heaven, so on and so forth, yada yada.
Right.
It's not our job to take that freedom of will away from them. We
Absolutely.
can tell them, hey, don't get that abortion or else, there will be consequences in the afterlife. And if they decide to do it anyway, well, at least you tried. But
right.
you can't literally tell them, hey, it's illegal, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's man's law versus God's law.
Absolutely. And see, and there goes the bane of the conflict of everything that's going on in this world in a nutshell. Because man thinks he's going to overrule the rules.
Exactly. God gave everyone free will in order to weed out. God gave everyone free will in order to weed out the bad souls and let only those that are worthy into heaven.
Well,
so
you heard it. You heard it out the mouth of Daniel.
Do I think it's right to have an abortion? No, I don't. Now, I will say probably the only thing that bothers me, which I think I'm happy for when it comes to the removal of Roe versus Wade, is the fact that there are some states. This is what started Roe versus Wade.
Right.
There are some states that stated that the man has an opinion as to whether or not his child is killed or not. I mean, I'm going to be honest. If I were to get a woman pregnant and I said I want to keep it, and she said, "Well, I'm going to abort it," I should have a say in that. In my opinion, I should have a say in that, saying,
I agree.
Why don't you go through the pregnancy, give birth, give me the child, sign over all the rights. I'll take the kid. I'll raise the kid as a single parent. Why should I be denied that right?
Now, I'm going to be the little advocate in this. Now, the flip side of it. Because although I agree with a lot of what you said, to put a twist and a turn on the other viewpoint of it is, are you going to be the one going through that 9 months when your body changes drastically, that you have a being inside of you that's pulling from every resource that you have, then turn around and then release the child, because you're going to form a bond naturally in the course of life if you are connected. You would
Maybe that's a good thing.
Well, that's the point. You're supposed to.
Getting
And
that,
maybe
maybe
that's the
getting that
fear.
connection
And maybe
can
that's the
cause
fear.
joint custody besides just solo custody.
That's a good
Maybe
point.
because on the same note, what if I, as a man, I say, if she says something like, well, all the doctor's bills, all this, I'll pay for everything.
Right.
I'll pay for the birth. I'll pay for everything.
Okay. But at the end of the day, the conflict comes in. I got your viewpoint. I have your concern. I understand you have a say in the process because you participated in the process. But the point at the end for women is that it's still our bodies. And you really don't know sometimes how you medically can be affected with carrying a child. Now, with all that being said, you know what I mean?
I have thought about that in different ways. Now, if it comes into a medical concern to where the woman could end up dying, like the doctor says, hey, there's a bad medical condition going on, it's either her or the baby, I would understand that.
Right.
I would definitely understand that. But if it's a 100% complete, I guess you could say, healthy pregnancy,
right,
and the guy really wants the baby, but the woman doesn't,
right,
and trust me, there are other stipulations in this. I mean, if I remember right, parts of Roe versus Wade had to do with the fact that she felt like she was sexually assaulted that led to the pregnancy. So, there's those situations. If the guy raped the girl, then yeah, definitely. I don't feel he has the right.
Right. Well, this is the thing too, Daniel, if you think about it. This decision on having children, traditionally now, because we spoke about God in the beginning of this, let's keep it going through it. This should be a decision between a married couple, right? I'm saying in the sense if you follow an alignment, I'm saying if you're following along in the alignment of that.
I say yes. As a Catholic, I say yes.
Okay.
As an American, following free will, I would say this should also apply to boyfriend, girlfriend.
Well, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen and it should happen inside of a relationship type of situation. I'm saying that if we're following along on saying that we're following God's law, right?
If we're following God's law, then yes.
And it has nothing to do with denomination at all.
Yes. So if the woman's not, if we were to follow God's law,
correct,
and the woman becomes pregnant and she is not married, then she should have the right to do whatever she wants. If she is married, the husband wants to keep it, she doesn't, there should be some talk about that. There should be some sort of in Catholicism, yes, most definitely. Well, but then again, in Catholic law, if both of them are Catholic, none of them would be.
It's not a conversation. Anyway. It wouldn't be a conversation. It's not a conversation. But as we know, there's more religions out there, and we're going to even take religion out of the equation right this minute, which is how you even get into a court battle about this topic, right? Because you're taking God out the equation and you're putting man in control of when does life begin, when does life is afforded to be able to be, carried through or extinguished, right? So that's what we're going to stay on that side of it. And so in that realm, if you are active, right? Because abortion shouldn't be birth control. So that's the first thing. And that's where a lot of the conflict is coming in, right? Because if you are deciding now to have an abortion, if it's something outside of your control, like we're saying, if you've been raped or molested and things of that nature, we're not talking about that. We're talking about two adults deciding to have intimacy and then produce a pregnancy.
not using a condom, not using
Yeah.
birth
Right,
control.
right. It should
They
not
create
be
it. They create a child.
right.
And I'm sorry, but I'm gonna
Mhm,
have to say, if both
mhm.
sides are consensual
Correct.
and both sides decided on not using contraception because, like I said, takes
Mhm.
two to tango.
Right.
The guy has the right to use a condom just as much as she has the right to use birth control.
Mhm.
If contraception happens and the guy says, I want the child, I'll pay for all the medical bills, I'll do all this, I'll do all that, I'll do everything, I'll help
Right.
you through the whole process. And then once you have the baby, as long as all the medical concerns are out of the way and it's just a healthy pregnancy, healthy birth, when the birth is over, sign over rights to me. I'll take the child and I'll be a single father.
Yes, but these
Why it
conversations should be had before
why
we even get into an act in a predicament like
why
this.
why shouldn't a man have a choice to do that?
Well, he should have a choice to have a conversation, but the conversation shouldn't be after something like you get thrown into this type of predicament.
Why shouldn't he be allowed a legal obligation
Now, Daniel, I'm
to
asking
be
you a
able to?
question.
Okay.
I'm asking a question with your question because I'm saying to you, these are some of the conversations that should be had prior to getting into this type of dilemma.
Yeah.
Correct?
Oh, definitely.
So it's
Most
already we
definitely.
understood. So people need to have better communication if you're having these type of intimacy situations. So that way, when a life is produced, we already know that we want it, right?
But I'm like so,
Go
like
ahead.
Well,
Daniel said though, the
Go ahead.
so yes, it should have the conversation should be had beforehand, right? But
Mm-hmm.
now let's say we're already there, right? It
Okay.
happened for whatever reason, we're both like you said,
Right.
consenting adults that had unprotected sex, no birth control, no contraceptives.
Right.
Daniel's point is, why shouldn't the man have an opinion at that point to say, we agreed going into this to not use any protection. I want to keep the
Mm-hmm.
child.
Well, he has a say, but he just doesn't have the final decision, and that's the problem. See,
not
that's why the
it
At
battle
that
wasn't
has.
point,
it
no.
wasn't that way. It wasn't that way during Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade, the woman had the choice to abort or not without the man's consent.
Right. Well, it is her body.
But it's his baby.
Inside of her body, and that's the battle. See, that's the battle. So if you can somehow incubate that baby, which they can, modern medicine has done it, where you can incubate the baby instead of now. How about we work on some scientific studies on that, on how to make sure, and I know they have, but maybe we need to put some more money into that. So that way that's an option. If you are opting for an abortion instead of an abortion, just let them remove the baby and incubate it for the male that's willing to pay for all.
Increased incubation techniques paid for by the man.
Well, that's who's saying at that point, right, that he wants to move forward
Give
with
the
it.
child, yo.
Yeah, so you have to pay for what you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do. If and she'll say, I mean, it wouldn't be an obstacle at that point, right? Because if you was already willing to do one procedure, it's the same type of procedure, but instead of it going to the waist, right? To the waist, right?
And
Instead of
trust
going
me,
to
I
waist,
know.
it'll
And
go
trust me, I
into
know.
something that you know.
And trust me, I know. I've seen firsthand, especially with my older sister Carrie. She's had 3 loving children.
Okay.
She's had all 3 of them completely natural.
I know how that is.
She boasts about the fact that she didn't even take medication. She did 100% natural births. As a matter of fact, the last 2 births that she did were water births.
Okay.
Wow.
I'll make a claim too.
And I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I've seen from during the pregnancy, all that stuff. I hate to say the damage that pregnancy will cause to a woman's body.
Absolutely.
The hormone imbalances, the mental anguish. I mean, her 3rd child, she actually went through postpartum depression to where for the first 3 months she barely wanted to even touch her third daughter because of that. I completely understand all of that, and you're absolutely right that a woman goes through so much more during the pregnancy than a man does. Obviously. I mean, all we have to do is have a lucky night and
wait for the bacon.
We're good to go, right, James?
Well, just like we had started off saying, it's nobody's place to place judgment, but you can have an opinion, and everybody can have their opinion on what they feel should or should not happen. But at the end of the day, it's the two people that were in that room, in that moment, and have to make that decision. That's what it should boil down to. So yes, the man should have some input. But when we move a few more steps further, a woman has to weigh the lifespan of the child, because we already know majority of the time it is the mother that has to pull the most weight, and that's just the truth.
He's already saying that even if she didn't want it, you're talking about after the child is born? You talking about?
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about. I don't know if you know or not about James, but postpartum depression is typically when the woman gives birth, and then afterwards, because of the separation, she becomes very depressed. She starts to resent the baby. She starts to resent the baby because of how her body has changed because of the pregnancy. And it starts to lead her into neglecting or having problems raising the child properly because
or functioning, period.
She's not happy with the outcome, essentially. It's no different. Like, I think they actually have a video of like an elephant who gave birth to a baby elephant. And this elephant went through postpartum depression, and it literally got to the point to where the mother tried to kill the baby elephant because of the postpartum depression.
Right, which is a lot of what you hear in the news, where you hear these mothers are attacking and killing their children and saying, what happened? That's what happened a lot of the times, is that they are dealing with mental health issues.
A lot of them end up getting an insanity plea because they plead insanity due to postpartum depression, which is completely legit. It is
correct.
Completely legit.
Unfortunately, it's a real deal. Well, Daniel, a mother of 5, I can tell you of the trauma a body can go through with childbearing. So it is a lot of a commitment for a woman to say that she's going to go from and through a whole pregnancy, but at the same time, you're fully aware. We're all adults. We all are fully aware what can happen.
I have so much respect. I have so much respect for women who have children. It's amazing what they go. It's amazing what they endure, what they go through, what they fight through, the labor pains. Not even just the labor pains, the hormone imbalances, the morning sickness, everything. It's the stuff that they go through. It makes us guys it makes our input, I guess you could say, into the situation so mundane.
Right. That's why the spider does what the spider does. She already knows, just go on and let them feed the kids.
That's why the praying mantis eats her mate after having, I guess.
That's the pre-postpartum. She said, okay, you did this to me.
You want to know what it feels like to get birth? I'm going to show you this.
Exactly.
Here we go. You're not going to survive it, I promise you.
You won't be at the beginning or the end of this story. Listeners, I want to thank you again for joining me for another episode of Boom in Your Face. Please remember to support the podcast on the website. As a reminder, if you'd like to share your Boom in Your Face music or share your Boom in Your Face moments, or just want to join in the conversation, reach out and email me at boominyourface616@gmail or visit the website and sign up for the newsletter and share your stories. I'm your host, Mary Kearney. Be blessed. Boom in your face. Boom in your face. Boom in your face. Boom in your face.